Muhammad Ali was asked, "What would you do when you retire?" This was his response: "Life is not really that long. Let's say the average person lives 30 years. If you are 30 years old, you're actually only 7 years old. Crazy, right? How can I prove it? For example, let's add up the 7, 8, 9 hours you sleep each night for 30 years. For example, last night when you went to sleep, you woke up. Most of you didn't remember any of it. It was definitely not productive. You've been unconscious for about 8 years of your life if you're 30 years old. Let's add up all your traveling, all your sleeping, your school, your entertainment, your social media usage. You probably spend half your life doing nothing. So let's add another 30 years. So when you're 65, the same thing. When you're 65, you lose some influence. You lost your youth, your edge, your bite. Again, you slept another 9 years of your life. So if you only have 16 years to live in your life to be productive, what are you going to do? I could tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't spend my 16 years of precious time being prejudiced, racist. I wouldn't spend my time hating anyone. I wouldn't spend my time not helping my community. I would not hold grudges. I would not spend my time not forgiving my oppressors. I would not let opportunities pass me by.
This is so annoying. I have a test on Friday. I don't have time to go to this MLK assembly. We do it every year. I know what's happening. You know what's up. You know who it is. We have that test on Friday. I have like 3 other tests. A project due. I can't.
I know, I'm slammed. Saying my boyfriend broke up with me too. What the heck?
If I wanted to watch this assembly, I would just go home and watch another one of those MLK movies that they put on every year on BET. Like, I don't need this.
Like, we know who he is. We've seen his picture. We know exactly who he is. We know what he did because obviously the world is different. We get his message. So can they just stop telling us? I really am stressed and this is just not.
Same thing every year.
Every year. Every year.
We have to shorten classes for an assembly that we go to every single year.
I see where you're coming from, but I think it's just part of the culture. I don't know.
I mean, I'll tell you guys what it is. MLK is a part of this U.S. history, regardless of whether you guys like it or not. He's fought for Americans, not just blacks or whites, all races, due to the fact that there's injustices in the world, even in America. So you guys just have to open up your eyes and just like appreciate what he did for you guys.
I mean, I agree with your dad, but the thing is, like, I understand where you're coming from, Dave, because you don't have to miss every single school year or one day for it. It's kind of pointless.
But no,
I understand.
I disagree with that. I wouldn't say it's pointless. Just think about it. Nelson Mandela fought for a lot of the same things Martin Luther King fought for. And he's looked at as an icon in South Africa by not only blacks but whites. But a lot of Caucasians in America don't feel the same way, don't have the same love for MLK as a lot of blacks. And I feel like that's an issue. That's why you guys need to be educated on him year in and year out.
I have to agree, but every day, I feel like if they had one assembly, they don't have to miss the school day, because you get the Monday off for his birthday.
They get Columbus Day off. There's a day given for a man who didn't do anything that they don't have to go to school for. Maybe they should have school on that day.
I think it's just too repetitive. Maybe we don't need a Columbus Day off. I have to agree with that.
And I don't know. To be honest, it's just another day to me. I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this topic.
I think on that day off, we should be educated about MLK. We don't have to miss the day, but on that day, on his birthday, we should be educated about it.
Right. That's what we're saying. They deserve to be educated on it. So you shouldn't be complaining, son, about how you have to miss class for this. I mean, like, how many times were you given presentations on pilgrims and whatnot and Thanksgiving every year?
But that's just a class I signed up for. This is something taken out of my day that I didn't assign myself to.
Listen, one thing you fail to understand is, I feel like since I spoil you guys too much, you guys don't understand that people are actually living through some of these injustices that he fought for. Just because you're not living through something, that does not mean that you shouldn't be educated on it.
Just by having an assembly every year, not having an assembly every year doesn't mean we're not educated about it. It's just something that we're saying that doesn't need to happen every year.
Well, but sometimes you guys need a reminder. Because how many times do you honestly think about all the injustices that go on in the world today, or in America?
And even personally at your own school, I feel as if, personally, I think we should move in the future and what can we learn from MLK so we can learn for it and move on past it instead of keep on reminiscing on the same things.
Chaos on the court at a high school basketball game in Stevenson Ranch. A brawl ended with a player arrested for felony battery. CBS 2's Jeff Nguyen shows us what happened.
This is video from the Santa Clarita Valley Signal newspaper of a brawl at a basketball game at West Ranch High School. You can see administrators separating kids after the sheriff's department says a player hit a 17-year-old boy.
So my head was down, and then I looked up.
Sports writer Mason Nesbitt, he says his back was turned for less than a minute after the game when he was told punches flew. His video captured two sheriff's deputies assigned to the game trying to calm things down.
It didn't look to be anything violent at that point, just a lot of yelling.
The sheriff's department arrested a 17-year-old Golden Valley player. They say one spectator had cuts to his face but didn't need to go to the hospital. Investigators say two girls got caught in the middle of it, but they were not seriously hurt. Nesbitt says the home crowd loudly booed the suspect during his introduction and taunted him throughout the game.
It didn't appear to be anything, inappropriate or out of the norm for a high school basketball.
Ninth grader Ethan Doty was on campus for lacrosse practice when he saw sheriff's cars rushing to the gym. His dad says the arrest is a good reminder of the importance of staying cool.
Sometimes just bite your tongue and let it go.
The sheriff's department says the suspect was released to his parents. The district says administrators from both schools are working to figure out what led up to the fight.
I think everyone is just making a huge deal about this. I mean, clearly you know all those guys. Chad, kidding. Chad is like insane. I don't think that he really meant anything by it. I mean, he knows Jeremy well, and he's really good friends with Jeremy, so I think he was just playing around. Like, I don't think he meant it in any way.
No, I think he meant it, because Chad's always doing stuff like that, making jokes, making racist jokes, and people just pass it off because he's a white boy. But Jeremy obviously felt some type of way, like he went into the back of the locker room to cry about it and everybody was still laughing, making jokes. Like, it's not like that. Like, you have to put yourself in Jeremy's shoes. Put yourself in my shoes. Like, we both black. Me and Jeremy, both black. I mean, he's a male, I'm a female. He gets more persecuted than I do, but still you have to put yourself in our shoes and feel what we feel.
But I don't think Chad was trying to bully Jeremy at all. I think he was just messing around and it turned out. And I think Jeremy took it the wrong way, and so it turned into this bullying thing. I don't think that this march you guys are planning for this situation is right. It happened. It's over. Administration is taking care of it. Can we just move on? Like, I understand why you wanted to talk, but I think from our perspective that we just don't feel like a march is gonna be the right thing.
It's like with the Malcolm X thing. He says, you respect us, we respect you. You don't respect us. We won't respect you. He clearly did not respect
but you
my
can't
cousin.
pass the
That's
judgment
why
on
he
to
came
all of
over.
us. Because
Yeah,
not
but
all of
why
us are
couldn't-
like that.
But also, why couldn't your cousin just be like peaceful, just like MLK? He never used violence. Why did he have to attack
And let me
Chad?
tell you why. Let me tell you why. We come from poverty. You guys, your boyfriend, he's rich. He had everything in his life. And seeing what's going on when
So
there's
you're-
listen. When we're in our hood, you know, this stuff goes down in our hood. Police does not care.
I mean, I'm black too, and I understand what you're feeling. I understand what's going on, obviously.
Obviously you don't, because if you really did, you would see why we're upset about him saying the N-word.
But okay, so yes, it's upsetting. We get it, but like we don't need to go to this huge like march thing, because I just feel like the march, there's gonna be police there that are just, you know, the police are gonna be there, things get out of control, people are gonna start rioting, and I just don't want that. We just
Okay,
want
but
this
she's
trouble.
saying
We want this
The
done.
only
Right.
reason the fight broke out is because he reacted so violently to something he could have simply talked out.
Just like
Why
exactly
would he
like how
have time
MLK
to
was
talk
doing.
out?
He doesn't
No
have
one
to
can
be
say,
so
you know what?
aggressive.
I didn't like that you called me the N-word. What was he going to say?
Why would
Oh,
you fight
well,
somebody with words?
Seriously.
Who cares?
Like you can't just
Let
do
it go.
that.
Tell him he's wrong and let it go. You don't.
I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. I don't think of it as a weak force. But I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful direct action. Now, this is what I tried to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance. Non-resistance leaves you in a state of stagnant passivity and deadened complacency, wherein non-violent resistance means that you do resist in a very strong and determined manner. And I think some of the criticisms of nonviolence, or some of the critics, fail to realize that we are talking about something very strong, and they confuse non-resistance with nonviolence.
The goal of Dr. Martin Luther King is to give Negroes a chance to sit in a segregated restaurant beside the same white man who had brutalized them for 400 years. The goal of Dr. Martin Luther King is to get Negroes to forgive the people who have brutalized them for 400 years by lulling them to sleep and making them forgetting what those whites have done to them. But the masses of black people in America today don't go for what Martin Luther King is putting down. As you said in one of your articles, it's psychologically insecure, something of that sort. I forget how you put it. But you didn't endorse what Martin Luther King was doing yourself.
I do not reject his goals of full integration and full equality rights for American citizens. Do you reject these goals?
If you don't think that he's walking on the right road, I'm quite sure you don't agree that he'll get to the right place. And if you would classify his method as psychologically unrealistic, I think that if a man's method is psychologically unrealistic, which means the road or the means or the method that he's using, I think as a psychologist, you'd be very doubtful
I don't think
that he would reach
true.
the right.
If anyone has ever lived with a nonviolent movement in the South, from Montgomery on through the Freedom Rides and through the sit-in movement and the recent Birmingham movement, and see the reactions of many of the extremists and reactionaries in the white community, he wouldn't say that this movement makes, this philosophy makes him comfortable. I think it arouses a sense of shame within him often, in many instances. I think it does something to touch the conscience and establish a sense of guilt. Now, so often people respond to guilt by engaging more in the guilt-evoking act in an attempt to drown the sense of guilt. But this approach certainly doesn't make the white man feel comfortable. It disturbs the other things, conscience, and it disturbs this sense of contentment.
I feel that killing is a very tragic way to deal with any social problem. There is no violent solution to the problem that the Negro confronts in this country, and this is why I have constantly said that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. After all, the Negro ends up on the losing end. We can't win a violent revolution. Most of the persons killed in riots are Negroes themselves. The persons who end up not being able to get milk for their children are Negroes because things where they have to live are destroyed. So there's no practical or moral answer in the realm of violence to the Negro's problem. But I do understand the sociological, the psychological, and the economic reason.
The problem can be solved. First, the white man and the black man have to be able to sit down at the same table. The white man has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of that Negro. And the so-called Negro has to feel free to speak his mind without hurting the feelings of the white man. Then they can bring the issues that are under the rug out on top of the table and take an intelligent approach to get the problem solved. That's the only way that they'll ever do it. We need an action program while we are Muslims, or while we are Christians, or while we are whatever we are. We still need an action program that will eliminate these evils that are in our community. And this is what we're trying to do with the Muslim Mosque Incorporated.
Do you consider yourself militant?
I consider myself Malcolm.
After the ceremonies began, Martin Luther King walked up to the podium on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and began.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt.
We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
By using biblical language, King created a moral imperative. His marchers became crusaders, and he, a symbolic Moses, to deliver Americans to the promised land. The speech was structured like a classic tale of good triumphant over evil. By reciting the words of "My country, 'tis of thee," King invited all listeners to participate in the victory. Within 2 months of King's speech, Congress passed a new civil rights bill into law. For many, the rally was a success. For others, the dream would not come soon enough.